Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lot Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel, and today I am joined by my co-host, for as far as I know, has never worked a day in his life. This is Tanner Dykstra, and we're here to talk about a man that he hates. Doctors hate him. He hates him. This is a working man. Tanner's like, no, ew, I don't want to do labor.
You calluses, I have soft hands.
We're here to talk about the new Jason Statham, David Ayer movie, A Working Man, and give you our thoughts on this film. But of course, if you have seen it and want to talk to us about it, you feel free to join our Discord server or leave your thoughts in the comments down below. But above all else, Tanner, the top mandate for today is subscribe to Lot Banter. We get so many people mooching off our videos. It's not free. Well, I mean,
no,
literally.
Well,
but
why don't you put a little work in? All right, why don't you become a working, a working stiff like our good friend Jason Statham?
Yeah, and Jason Statham won't kill you if you subscribe. He won't have to kill you. Tanner, we've seen A Working Man. This comes hot off the heels of their last collaboration last year, The Beekeeper,
just a year
and they're trying to recapture that same audience. How do you feel about A Working Man? And I don't know, maybe kind of how it relates to The Beekeeper as well.
So, Tucker, when I was going in, I was like, you know what? The Beekeeper didn't wholly work for me. I think The Beekeeper is a very fun movie, and I was interested in A Working Man seeing that, as their next collaboration together. And I was like, you know what? Seems a little bit more grounded from all the trailers and everything. Yeah. Perhaps this one will be a little bit more my speed. Statham going back to like his 2000s or 2010s output of just like really solid action leading man stuff. Instead, Tucker, what A Working Man is perhaps one of the most incoherent Hollywood films produced in recent memory. It is a real mess of like who read this script and approved it, who saw working prints of this movie and approved them, who decided that this should be the order in which scenes in this film take place.
Yeah.
It is a real oddity in terms of editing and pacing, and then, performance and plotting go along with that, I feel.
Yeah.
Are there good things to say about A Working Man? I mean, Jason Statham is fine. This is a movie like built around him, so
he's
his
aptly
sensibilities.
cast.
Yeah, for sure. He was like the collaborator in mind here. But like it's not really a fun movie in the way that The Beekeeper was so weird and fun.
Yeah.
A Working Man is just sort of like cruel is a weird thing to say about like this action movie and the sensibility surrounding it with the tagline and everything like that. It sort of had this maybe gauche fun to it with human traffickers beware. It's like, all right, we're going all in on this like weird politically charged thing that Ayer and Statham have been doing in the last couple years with The Beekeeper. Spoiler for The Beekeeper ending in like a pseudo QAnon thing.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I do want to talk about like just the weird elements of A Working Man outside of it just being a total mess from a scripting standpoint.
Well, the scripting standpoint is definitely where a lot of the problems stem from. Tanner, do you know who was the co-writer on this script?
Oh boy, Tucker,
Sylvester Stallone, who
Mr. Sly Stallone himself,
who has I checked, not written a film since not really outside of his Rambo and Rocky movies, which had sort of semi-reboot legacy sequels like a decade ago. But
he really only writes things that like he's involved in. His creative input is being applied on set and beforehand and everything. Yeah,
but that is why this movie got greenlit. Tanner. It's because, for some reason, David Ayer and Sylvester Stallone worked together, and they made a script that the suits in Hollywood were like, well, these guys made a script. We got to let them make it. And they didn't seem to really care what was actually in it, or if it made sense, or if it needed more passes, or if the character writing and pacing and dialogue was coherent or legible at all. And the problems don't stop there, unfortunately, because I think this movie isn't very well made either. I think the cinematography and lighting and editing is all super just underbaked and feels kind of amateurish. The action, I'm sure, choreography-wise is fine, but it's edited to crap, so you just can't get a sense of what's happening. I kept thinking the same line over and over again in my head as I was watching the action sequences, I can't tell what's going on, but I can assume Jason Statham is winning, which is because
And contractually, he must.
he never gets hurt or injured or
No,
anything.
of course
But
not.
I really did not like A Working Man. I think that it
No,
gets
yeah.
more frustrating as it goes on because this movie's main issue is that it introduces way too many side plots and plot lines
just too
that are
much
all
shit going
kind of
on.
the main plot, but it's hard to tell. It's really,
Yes.
really frustrating to just feel like you're lost in this web. And I can understand conceptually the idea that this human trafficking ring has so many people involved in it. You want to kind of want to get a scale of a sense of the scale of how many different bodies. This isn't just like one person running this. I understand that on like a conceptual level, but the problem this movie does with its villains, its human trafficker characters, is it all gives them like one scene to kind of like key you into like, okay, this is someone you should like kind of worry about or care about, quote unquote. And then it never really goes farther than that. It just keeps introducing more and more and more. And by the end of the movie, you're 10, 12 layers deep into this thing, and you're like, who is in charge of whose job is what? It's just obnoxious.
There are so many versions or duos of characters or single characters who in a different, more well-written movie would be like the main bad guy. But this movie has, Tucker, let's estimate here. 6, 7, 8 of those characters, because let's rattle them off here. Spoilers for A Working Man, kind of lightly, I guess. There are the two people that actually have the girl for most of the movie.
Yes.
There is the first boss that he kills.
Yeah. That's the first bartender.
The first bartender, the two guys in the track suits.
Yes.
The old guy, the guy with the ponytail who is the one who's purchasing the girl.
Yes.
There is a separate Russian old guy.
Yeah. There's the drug guy in the throne, and then he has two
bikers.
lackeys that kind of get some personality. One of them is the one set at the computers, and one of the one I kept thinking was Tim
those
Nelson.
2 people. So we're at 12. Would you count like the bald guy and skinny guy big gun as, or those?
Sure.
Those are mostly goons.
Yeah, they're goons, but like they show up, they're actually like the last ones to kill. So like
exactly.
And by the end of the movie, most of these characters are dead, and throughout it, we kind of jump between who he's chasing or who he's aware of, and we are half introduced to them again over and over and over again. And the movie just doesn't really seem concerned with you actually understanding what the progression of events is. The most frustrating thing about the progression of this movie is Jason Statham is, he's a tracker. He's got tech. He understands.
Can do everything.
Yeah, he's just a perfect hero. But he he'll find someone. In some way he'll get information. He'll go to one of insert X random miscellaneous character we mentioned
one
here.
of the 15 that we just named.
Yeah, and then he'll torture them. They'll kind of tell him something. They die, and then he's able to piece together where to go next. But sometimes, even when he tortures them or kills them, like, how did he actually find out where he's supposed to go next? It's bizarre.
The bizarre is the right word. This is the most bizarre thing about the middle of this movie is after he kills first Russian guy who hits his wife or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, that's for your wife. He drowns him in the pool. He just knows to go to this biker drug dealing biker bar, and then he's there for a long time.
Yeah.
He just does that storyline for a long time. And I just turned to our friends watching this. I was like, what is he doing? How does this relate to his goal of finding this girl who was kidnapped? Does it relate in any way? What's the play here?
Well, because he is ingratiating himself to the drug dealing side of this larger Russian mafia thing that includes drug dealing and human trafficking, but then it's hard to tell how they're interlinked.
Tucker, the one that we didn't name when we're rattling off all the characters is the actual who's supposed to be the main guy who's running the human trafficking ring. Dieter or something?
No, Dieter's from Army of Thieves there.
Thank you. Demi. We didn't name him, so it's 16.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is the point, is that he pretends to be a drug dealer so he can meet Demi
Unclear. Yeah. And here's another issue with this is he knows what he's doing in his own head, but he's also just a very quiet internal guy, and he also doesn't have a lot of people he can talk to or does talk to. The supporting
Yeah, well,
cast of
that's
this
another
movie
issue.
is incredibly,
Yeah.
incredibly weak. It's ostensibly just one guy on his mission. Okay, that's fine. I've seen plenty of movies like that. That's not inherently a bad
Mhm.
thing. But when your main character is so dry and internal, it's hard to connect to what his process is, what his goals are. We learn a little bit about his backstory. We know that he is very fond of his daughter, which I think
Well,
is probably the strongest personality-wise dynamic of the movie. I actually think he
sure.
kind of sells those scenes where he's like taking care of his kid. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
actually,
honestly,
I
it's
buy that.
fine.
But then there's like David Harbour and Michael Pena who only show up like
Yeah,
twice, and it's like, and like
yeah.
those are the secondary tier characters in terms of people he can talk to. Then he also has like this guy on like the Chicago PD that we see like
Yeah.
once. It's like a Deus Ex Machina insert of like, oh,
Yeah.
how are we gonna get this information? Just insert a character that we'll never see again.
No, that guy tells him something that he already knows. Like the movie plays that as though it's like a reveal, but like that what the cop says of like, didn't he just find that out?
No, no,
And then he's like,
he tells
"Oh,
him to go to the
thank
bar.
you."
He tells him to go to the
Oh,
bar. That's how he
oh, that's
finds out how
right.
to go
That's
there.
where he
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
learns. Well, no, because somebody, I swear to God, somebody tells him that there's a biker bar or something, and then he calls the guy, and then he's like, there's this biker bar where they deal meth.
Yeah.
He's like, "All right, this sounds like a plan."
Well, you say like, oh, did people say this? Did he know this? The
Hmm.
movie ends up feeling very interchangeable in terms of the order of its
Yeah.
scenes, and I really like that you mentioned that earlier. Of like, I mean, any of these scenes can put in basically any order.
Yeah.
Unless a character dies, I have no clue which order these scenes are supposed to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, Chuck, you brought up Michael Pena and David Harbour, who are the only two like notable other actors in this outside of Statham himself. And yeah, their parts are extremely confusingly, limited.
Yeah.
When we so again, spoilers for a working man if you care. When we reunite the girl with her family at the end, I was like, oh yeah, remember when like this family was like important to the movie for the
Yeah.
first 20 minutes or whatever? And then Harbour, this is what throws me through a loop the most. He is a blind veteran
American veteran.
American veteran who seemingly has like daredevil powers, so where he can like still
Yeah.
accurately shoot bow and arrow. Like
Yeah.
that's his big thing, and he has like a whole treasure trove of guns or whatever. Yeah, he's set up to have an action scene where like, or maybe he like tags along or
Yeah.
something like that, where it feels like it's an element of like Statham's narcissism or something that
Sure.
scene is not in here
Yeah.
because it feels insane that you set up this character in this way and don't have an action sequence that includes him.
Yeah, yeah, and he and Statham's bond, and Statham being a ex-member of or former member of the British military of some
Hmm.
kind, is kind of. It seems like that's actually what the themes of this movie are about. Is like
Yeah.
veterans and the strength of like military people who have this knowledge. And so because we see the two of them have conversations about how great it was, like the good things that they did
Remember,
together.
remember when we were overseas and we had killed all those people? We did some righteous
Yeah.
shit, brother.
But
We did some righteous shit, brother.
But of course, they avoid going to any specifics of like what wars
Yeah.
they were in or what they did. And then there's also like this the drug dealer guy who sits on the throne.
The biker guy.
He's also a former military guy, and they share a sort of a bond. Even to the point where when he stabs him brutally in the throat and lets the guy like bleed out, he's like, "Oh, rest
This
easy,
is-
brother." And I'm like, "You just murdered this guy like
This is
incredibly
an
brutally."
absolute. This is insane to me again, and I think points to like the the extreme right wing politics that are sort of pervading
Yeah,
these
yeah.
Ayer and Statham movies now. That like so yeah, he has this extremely spawn, fuck me and you in the shit, brother, with David Harbour, that kind of thing, and then he like kind of relates to the biker drug dealer guy when he first meets them, and they think it's a mutual drug dealer thing. But when they have this final confrontation, and yeah, he stabs him probably, I don't know, 600 times, I would say, and then jams like a knife into his trachea at the very end. And he's like, I respect you. He's like, you just killed him. And so the politics of the movie are basically saying that like, yes, they have this shared bond of, military service or whatever, but unfortunately, this guy is a drug dealer, so he does deserve to be brutally murdered.
Yeah.
So, that is the line that we're crossing.
Yeah, it's definitely very odd. Also, I want to get your thoughts on this. So the
Okay.
opening section of this movie is the credits, and it's this weird montage of miscellaneous construction and slash or military propaganda footage.
Yep. Yep.
But all American military footage propaganda,
Well,
which does
up
not
and
relate to our main character, who never was a member of the U.S. military, and so
mhm.
I was really confused. I'm like, I
Well,
mean,
Tucker,
it's really
don't
just
you
setting up the
remember?
vibe.
Don't you remember when it shows the British flag at the very end, and then the British flag starts to burn from the inside, and then the American flag is revealed behind it? That is utter insanity, and really sets the tone for what's going to happen in this movie. I think it's meant to be, sort of a light, like backstory for what happened overseas in the military with Statham and Harbor, because he
Maybe,
mentions like
yeah.
they lightly mention that like Statham saved him at some point,
Oh,
and then like
huh.
and
Yeah, yeah.
like that he's like, I'm sorry I couldn't save
Save
your
your eyes.
eyes. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you saved my life, brother. I can't.
yeah. Yeah.
Something
Okay.
like that.
So we've covered how incoherent this movie is, how weird the plot is, how many villains there are. Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
do want to talk about this movie on like a craft level, because I think that's
Okay.
really where my eyes and ears started noticing that this was a production that I was not going to be a fan of. Number one,
Hmm.
sound mixing is terrible in this movie.
Sure.
There is just like loud air conditioners and like background music that's too loud and just like
Yeah, yeah.
just crap going on. And characters are always in like these like busy scenarios, and so like you just can't understand what they're saying. Like they're in bars, they're at restaurants, they're at parties and stuff. And there was just many sequences where I'm like, I feel like either the movie is trying to be like, it was walking this fine line of sometimes there'll be a scene where in X movie where they're in a really loud concert or something, and you can't hear them, but they can hear each other. Okay, that's intentional.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then I was like listening in, and like I would catch a few words. I'm like, no, this is important. And I'm like, so that's not intentional. I'm supposed to really be able to clearly understand what's happening here, what they're saying, and it's just not the case. I think the sound mixing is one of the worst aspects of this film.
No, yeah, I would tend to agree. And then like the direction of the action is also not very compelling. Like, at least with the Beekeeper, they introduced some like really weird elements, like fucking flammable honey and like weird
Yeah,
colored hair assassin leagues or
yeah. He
whatever.
he sets up
This one,
traps.
he sets up traps, exactly. This one, the action throughout is pretty dull, pretty stock standard stuff, not especially well directed. That's not necessarily been a strength of David Ayers at any point in his career, is like good, well directed, well crafted action. And then the Beekeeper-esque, like gonzo ending to this is what I would describe, Tucker, as like an Arkham Asylum casino that he infiltrates at the end. Because the guy with the ponytail, the guy who's purchasing the girl or whatever, looks like the
Hey,
penguin
oh,
at the end.
absolutely, Oswald Cobblepot. I was gonna
Yeah,
say that.
yeah. He has like the
Yeah.
cigarette holder and the top hat and the tuxedo with the tails and everything.
Yeah,
We're
he
like,
kind of
what the
short
fuck?
and what the heck?
What the fuck is this? But no, like, and that they don't really do anything especially interesting there. He has like one gadget that he uses, the bullet tooth, as he calls it, where he like flips the screen down on his
Oh,
chest and shoots over the
yeah, he
thing.
used that one time. I'm like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, what if he? But no, otherwise he's just slamming people's heads into tile bathrooms or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and that definitely the action feels very whatever needs to happen in this sequence. He can kind of do
Yeah,
anything. And quickly wrap up the
yeah,
other actual craft elements of this film.
yeah. Go for it. Go for it.
Tanner, the lighting.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the
Oh
lighting.
yeah, it's
The
not great.
amount of
Not great.
background bloom lighting, like anytime they're inside and there's a window,
Oh,
it is the
yes.
brightest window you've ever seen.
The
And it's
scene,
swallowing up the characters. It's
the
terrible.
scene where Statham and his daughter are at the
Yeah,
restaurant,
yeah, yeah.
and there's just glare across their face. It's like, oh, Jesus, come on, man.
Yeah, and then there's a scene where, like, right after that, when Michael Pena's like sad, his daughter's like drinking on the floor, and
Yeah,
and there's just
yeah,
like
yeah.
this light from behind, I'm like, whoa, whoa. And so
Yeah,
either
yeah.
the characters are way too backlit to where their faces become almost silhouettes, or they're swallowed up by sort of this bloom, this very soft
Hmm.
bloom, or it's too dark. There's very
Yeah.
little like key lighting on faces in this movie, and so there's a lot of going into like dark alleyways and back corners and
Hmm.
stuff like this, and you just can't see the faces of the characters. It's really
You
really
think
bad.
you figure with the moon that big and that close to the Earth that you'd be able to see some stuff.
I mean, that's the other thing to mention. What is going on with
What
the
the fuck is
moon
going
in
on
this
with the
movie?
moon?
The first time I noticed it was when there's this outside shot at nighttime of the Hattie's bar.
The bar.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
there's this big moon. I'm like, that moon is way bigger than it's supposed to be, but
That's
whatever. Just one weird
Yeah.
shot. Obviously, a green screen thing that they guess didn't really think about the size. But obviously, it was something they were thinking about because
Yeah.
especially in this
You see
last
it
action
so many
sequence,
times.
which is like
So
20
many
minutes
times.
long, anytime there is a shot of a forest, the moon is always behind them, which gives you no sense of like direction or scale, and
It
the moon
is-
just continually gets bigger and bigger in the frame, and you're like,
It is
what?
damn near touching the horizon of
Yeah.
any scene that it's in. It's absolutely insane.
I have no idea how that happened.
I mean, I've said that word a couple times throughout this review, Tucker. But this film is utter insanity, but not necessarily in like a fun to watch way.
No,
It's fun
just
to
confusing.
like think back on all the weird, crazy stuff, incoherent stuff that's in the movie. But filmically, when you're watching it, you're just like, God damn, this is a slog. This is a mess. I'm not
It's
having
2
a good
hours
time.
long. Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels way too long for what it is, and it ends up feeling very repetitive. And I think again, it all returns to like scripting problems, mostly on like a
Yeah,
plot
yeah.
level and like how complicated how many characters there are. But I also do
Yeah.
think that like I don't really get who Jason Statham is supposed to be. I like actually the beginning of this movie where he's has a camaraderie with the people at his site,
Yeah,
and he's
you would
kind of
assume
friends with his
that
bosses.
would be a bigger part of the movie.
No, it's
That,
not
like,
at all.
The
It's not at all.
working man stuff, like the construction worker stuff.
Yeah, and he's like defending them at the site. But that is very quickly dropped, and we actually never get a moment where he decides to go. Chase down this kind of
True.
happens.
Yes, good point. Good point.
And then the problem with that is he's supposed to be a working man. One thing about his character I actually do like is that he is so dedicated to his being a working man, like working at the site, that he doesn't actually have a house. He kind of just sleeps in his car.
True.
Like it does give
Yeah.
him like this little bit of character texture. He's renting out
Yeah.
this place. Oh wait, what was the plot line where he's like suing the grandpa to like for custody of his child? That never goes anywhere.
Yeah, that never goes anywhere. The grandpa's also like a soy
Dude, oh my God,
doctor
yeah.
or whatever. He does yoga. He wears silly hats and he
Yeah.
throws like weird birthday parties for his daughter. This guy, he should be thankful that Jason Statham saved him from his house being on fire. To which the daughter, they match each. Our friend Joe said this very well. They match each other's freak very well. It's like you can tell that this daughter is not going to grow up to be a well-adjusted person.
Sure.
Because she's like, Grandpa, he could have left you in that burning house. You're like, Jesus fucking Christ.
You're 7.
You're 7.
Yeah. That's a weird plot line that again never goes anywhere. But also like he is supposed to be a very blue collar guy, but he also owns all this gadgetry, and he's always driving around super nice, a lot of different super nice cars that apparently he rents, and he drives around motorcycles and stuff. I'm like, he doesn't feel like a relatively down on his luck, honest, salt of the earth guy. He has this backstory that is that, but the amount of technology and weapons and vehicles that we see him using completely abandons that. And so the movie feels, as you mentioned sort of in our text last night, like a fantasy of this blue-collar guy who's able to do things on his own, but the movie doesn't care to commit to that, frankly, because he has every training ever. He kills everyone ever. He has all the technology and gadgets and weaponry that he could possibly need. I'm like, if you want to commit to like this being a relatable sort of more normal guy who is very skilled, you have to commit to that. But the movie just he has all this technology, and he's like got like heat sensing things. He's got this big camera. Like what the heck?
That would involve him being like being a grounded person with flaws potentially. And Jason Statham doesn't want to play one of those characters. He has to be a perfectly tuned, man-killing, daughter-loving machine who is morally right in every single scenario. And anyone who questions his methods or his loyalties is clearly either a coward or a villain, an enemy.
Yeah. It's frustrating. I mean, I think this is a really poor movie. It's not made well. It's not acted well. And it's just confusing at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And also politically, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that you and I just personally like quite strongly. So, how do you feel about A Working Man overall? You want to give it a score?
Well, Tucker, let's go like a 3.2 out of 10.
Yeah. I'll say 3 out of 10 as well. I mean, Yeah, I just continue to get more and more frustrated by this movie
Yeah.
not committing to its own premise, by it continually introducing characters and feeling like it's just spinning off into all these different areas,
Hmm.
just creating side characters to answer questions, and it's like I didn't care to have that answer. What's happening here?
Or creates side characters to like add more complexity to a movie that does not need it.
No, it does not. But yeah, we don't recommend this movie if you can believe it or not. I would not
Yeah.
say go see it, but it's probably something that gels with a certain audience. So
Yeah, for
have a
sure.
grand old time.
Hmm.
Thank you everyone for watching our review of A Working Man. We'll see you next time.